To miss tonight's Game 5 with the Jazz with a right knee injury, and he could be out the remainder of the series, sources told ESPN. Leonard tweaked the knee on a drive late in the Clippers' Game 4 victory, grimacing in pain as he planted on the way to the basket. He stayed in briefly. He didn't finish the game. He had said after the game, "No, I'll be good for Game 5. Reports suggest otherwise now. Our senior NBA writer Brian Windhorst broke the story along with Ramona Shelburne. Wendy, what more can you tell us about Kawhi's injury?
Yeah, just really disappointing news, Matt. It is a sprained knee ligament. Kawhi told his teammates last night that he was likely going to be out for the rest of this series, certainly out for tonight's game. The Clippers are hopeful that if they can advance, that they can get him back before the end of the playoffs. But this is an injury, Matt, that will be weeks, not days, to recover from. He's had knee issues on both sides before, so they're going to have to be cautious. In the short term, look for Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard to get more playing time. They missed him for 20 games this year where they went 11-9 in those games. Paul George's scoring average went up by about 5 points a game with Kawhi out, but his three-point percentage went down by about 10 percentage points. Obviously, a lot of pressure on him to have big games going forward.
Wendy, I understand I'm putting you on the spot here, but again, after the game the other night, Kawhi said, "No, man, I'll be good. I'll be in Game 5. What changed in that time? Was there some imaging done on the knee that located this injury and how we got here?
Yeah, he had an MRI yesterday, and I understand Kawhi said what he said, but you could tell that he was worried about that, and the game was not in hand, and they pulled him out of the game, and he didn't finish, which told you that they were concerned. And with his history of knee injuries, they're going to be careful, but this is a knee sprain. This isn't a caution. This isn't load management. This is a legitimate injury that would take down any player, and the timing is awful, and it's disappointing, and the Clippers still have to rise up, especially because we have news today that Mike Conley upgraded to questionable. He could be coming back for the Jazz very soon.
Yeah, Wendy, you heard us at the top of the show. Just a huge day in the NBA with breaking news. Brian Windhorst with the first of it. Sage, what do you have?
Unfortunately, more bad news, Matt, and it's out of Phoenix. Veteran star guard Chris Paul has entered the NBA's health and safety protocols, and it's unclear whether he'll be available for the start of the Western Conference Finals next week. And it comes 3 days after he scored 37 points to lead the Suns to their first conference final since the 2009-2010 season. So, again, Chris Paul, terrible timing for him as well as Kawhi. Coming off an amazing series against Denver, shot 63% overall, 75% from deep in this 4-game sweep. He averaged a double-double with points and assists. Thankfully, they won in 4 games, and so time is of the essence. There's a chance he may be able to come back for the West Finals, depending on how that series plays out. Let's welcome in senior NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski live with the latest on this. And we're going to start with this Chris Paul story. Woj, what can you tell us as he has entered the NBA's COVID protocols?
Well, Sage, now that Chris Paul is in the league's protocols, he tests every day, and he's going to have to test negative to be able to return to the Suns' playoff run. That Clipper-Utah series is tied at 2. They've got their Game 5 tonight in Salt Lake. And so the soonest that series could be over is Friday. If somebody wins this in 6 games, it could potentially go to Sunday in a 7th game. And that buys Phoenix time, for Chris Paul to test and eventually be cleared to return. But right now, there's no clarity on how soon he'll be back.
All right, Woj, once again, tough timing. Timing is of the essence with all of these situations right now in the NBA. At this point, are you talking to people in Phoenix? What's the level of concern that Chris is going to miss time?
Well, listen, there's great concern. The stakes are really high right now, but ultimately he's going to be at the mercy of the testing. And so right now there are no clear answers for anybody about what that timetable will be. Certainly, you know that they are rooting for a 7-game Clipper Jazz series, that's for sure.
For sure. So the earliest the West Finals would begin is Sunday, potentially on Tuesday, which would certainly help the Phoenix Suns. So you'll keep us up to date on that. In the meantime, Matt mentioned at the top of the show some coaching changes. Let's start with the Pelicans. Stan Van Gundy out in New Orleans. Why?
Sage, ultimately in some meetings between Stan Van Gundy and New Orleans management, David Griffin, their executive VP, they just were not seeing eye to eye on the future and how they would proceed together. And so after one season, Stan Van Gundy is out, and you can expect to see some of the names for this job similar to the candidates they talked to just a year ago. assistant coaches like Ime Udoka, Jacques Vaughn in Brooklyn, Charles Lee in Milwaukee, Jason Kidd with the Lakers, among possible candidates as Zion Williamson heads toward his third head coach in 3 NBA seasons.
I was just going to say that's a lot of change for the young Zion Williamson. He was there for just the one season in New Orleans after just a year off in between that head coaching job with the Detroit Pistons. So from Stan Van Gundy in New Orleans to Washington, and maybe this coaching change a bit more of a surprise. Woj, why is Scott Brooks out in Washington?
His contract expired, Sage, at the end of the season. He had finished his original 5-year deal. They couldn't agree on a new deal. And Scott Brooks and management had talked extensively, but they couldn't agree to move forward together. I think there were questions about staff and assistant coaches, and certainly Scott Brooks, wanted to go forward with the staff he had. I think there were some questions about that, but ultimately no agreement on a new contract. So he's out, and certainly this is a crucial time for this Washington franchise. Bradley Beal's future is certainly very much in balance in Washington. And of course, Russell Westbrook, who was very close to Scott Brooks, played for him in Oklahoma City, was a great advocate for him with the Wizards. That's certainly going to be a change for him too.
They made 3 playoff appearances in Brooks' 5 seasons as head coach, and we should note what a difficult season this was in particular for Washington. All the COVID issues at the beginning, they bounced back. So we'll see what happens in Washington as Scott Brooks leaves the nation's capital after 5 seasons. Woj, thank you with so much breaking news from the NBA today.
Thanks, Sage.
Yeah, typically, this historic performance and a KD would have been the top of the show.
Series tied up after Trae Young. Ice Trae led the Hawks to the come from behind victory with a 25-point performance in Game 4. Monica, who has the edge tonight?
Okay, let me explain my answer, Charlie and Freddie. I believe the Hawks have the edge. Uncle Mo is on their side. That was a very gritty comeback win for them. And quite honestly, we've heard from the 76ers camp that they choked that one away, right? Mm-hmm. However, I do think that the 76ers squad is good enough. And if they play Game 2 basketball, they should be able to overcome this Hawks squad with an edge. But the Hawks have length, they have confidence, and they can shoot the 3. So I think the Hawks are feeling pretty good coming into this one.
To me, the team that has the edge is the team that's going to be playing at home, and that's the Philadelphia 76ers. And Monica, to your point, they blew an 18-point lead. And Doc Rivers let them hear about it in the postgame, where he said the Hawks out-bleeping worked us all night long, especially coming back from 18 points. You know that's going to be ringing in the ears of one particular dude, and that is Joel Embiid, who went 0 for the fourth quarter. He's a very prideful man and a very forceful man. He's going to bring that edge, and everybody's going to follow his lead. I'm with you. I think the 76ers win tonight, but they have the edge going into this game based on how they choked it away in the final half of
the one thing
Game 4.
I think is the one thing I think is important for us to watch, as terrific as Joel Embiid has been, in the last game, we started to see maybe that knee actually is bothering him. So we've got to keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Well, he's feeling good too now after making All-NBA. He's entitled to that Supermax money, so he's feeling good heading into tonight. We have 2 big games, both of them tied at 2-2, so we are ready for it. And we're going to break it all down tomorrow right here on First Take. Freddie, Monica, it's been a pleasure. See you guys.